I have found three things about the U.S. Constitution that virtually nobody knows, almost nobody. And I think that, and they're huge, gigantic things, not that little quibble about a framer versus a founder. And if you don't know these things, then you cannot ever understand the U.S. Constitution. And when I say nobody, I mean, I always come back to my prime example is Justice Robert Bork wrote probably the best-selling book about the U.S. Constitution ever written, The Tempting of America. And he gets it wrong, wrong, wrong. I mean, virtually everybody gets it wrong. And the first of the three things is the Bill of Rights. I believe you earlier had said, before the technical difficulties, you talked about the First Amendment protecting our speech rights. Well, the framers of the U.S. Constitution wrote the Constitution and completed the Constitution, and they believed passionately that they had indeed protected your speech rights and your gun rights and your religious rights. They believed passionately they had protected those. They knew they had protected those, and yet there was no Bill of Rights in the Constitution. Myth number one. The framers of the Constitution of the United States had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the Bill of Rights. I'm sorry, that's the truth. The myth is they wrote it. They had nothing to do with it. The founding fathers of the United States of America had absolutely nothing to do with the Bill of Rights. When the Bill of Rights was proposed at the Constitutional Convention, the framers, the men who actually wrote the Constitution, said it was preposterous, unnecessary, and dangerous. The state delegations at the convention, voting as blocks, rejected the idea unanimously. Of the 55 men at the convention, only 3 spoke in favor of the measure. Now, why? Now, you will never, ever, ever understand the Constitution if you do not know why the framers said the Bill of Rights is unnecessary, preposterous, and dangerous. So let me tell you why they said those things, why they refused to put a Bill of Rights in the Constitution. The Bill of Rights came, by the way, 3.5 years later, in a different state, in a different city, in a political forum, and again, had nothing to do with the founding fathers or the framers. Why did the framers reject the Bill of Rights? And it certainly was not because they did not believe in the rights that you find in the Bill of Rights passionately. The framers believed in those rights passionately with all their soul. Why then is the Bill of Rights a bad idea? Let us start with unnecessary and preposterous first. The strategy behind protecting your rights inherent in the Bill of Rights is to write them down. You're going to write a tiny little list of your rights. The framers said, and they repeated over and over and over, there's a problem with this. You have lots and lots and lots of rights. You write a list of your rights, you're going to fail. You're going to forget, you're going to leave stuff off. You have a lot more rights than any little list that we're going to write is going to contain. You have way more rights. That's one of the problems with the Bill of Rights. The framers had a much, much, much better idea, a much better idea. Instead of writing a tiny little list of your rights, known as the Bill of Rights, they would write a similar list, a tiny little list of the powers of the federal government. Article 1, Section 8. Here are the powers of the federal government. Very boring and mundane things. Secure the border, raise an army, have a post office, collect tariffs, have a judicial system, blah, 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 blah. These are the few and boring powers of the federal government. Anything not on our tiny little list of federal government powers belongs to the people. In other words, if you look at that list, post office, army, navy, tariffs, you see nothing about telling you who to worship, taking your guns, suppressing free speech, oppressing the press. You see nothing there. Therefore, the federal government has no power, no authority to do any of those things. I think it becomes blindingly obvious why the Bill of Rights is unnecessary in a tenth of a second. Every single right contained in the Bill of Rights, every single right was already off limits to the federal government. That is why the framers said that the Bill of Rights is unnecessary and preposterous. Now, why is it dangerous?